Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. This guy right here is Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. From Image Comics, we're going to be talking about Hitomi, issue number 4 out of 5. We're almost at the end. It is written and created by H.S. Tak, art by Isabella Mazzanti, colors by Valentina, Napolitano, and then letters by Rob Jones. And if you're interested, the cover is Clint Bint. I think that's who the cover is. It's supposed to be cover A. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. If you're so inclined, hit the bell if you enjoy hearing my reviews or my story time, however you want to call it. So to catch you up, basically, we are traveling with Hitomi and Yasuke. In the beginning of the story, Yasuke is the one that caused the death of Hitomi's parents. It was a little confusing, maybe on my half, but yes, Yasuke is the samurai that Hitomi started her journey looking for. She has found Yasuke, and now secretly she is training as a samurai with Yasuke. In the last issue, they were being recruited by force into the Imperial Army, and that's kind of where we left off. Basically, the book starts off, and I want to assume that this page just is representing, Hitomi getting a little older. But we start the book off in Africa, and we're basically getting Yasuke's origin story. He's featured here as a young boy. We see some soldiers on horses, and we find out later on they are Spaniards that are invading Africa at the time. They eventually kill Yasuke's family, and basically they enslave him, and that's kind of where the flashback or origin story cuts off. We are then caught up with present day, 1590 Japan, where Yasuke and Hitomi are brought forth in front of Sentoshi. I'm assuming he is the current general of the army. But basically, we have this conversation before, this general and Yasuke, and he's asking Yasuke how come when he was a samurai he didn't complete senpai after his boss Nubonga. It was his commanding samurai. Basically, he got captured and then he was put to death. All his inner circle had created senpai, and Yasuke is the only one that's still alive, and that's basically what the general is asking. Yasuke does have an answer for him, and basically he explains that due to how he was received by Nato, however his master was, but basically he was set free. He was told to go back to Africa, to his homeland. At this point, the general's like, well, how come you haven't got home? And we get these expressions right here. There is no real good reason, but he does give the general a reason. He's basically well, after Africa, and I was a slave there, then I went to Portugal and I was a slave there, and then I went to India and I was a slave there. Basically until he ended up on the shores of Kyoto in Japan before Lord Nubonga. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, but Nubonga. The general accepts the answer, and basically he's like, okay, so who's the girl? And Yasuke basically explains real quick that it's a nobody. She's basically training to be a samurai, and that's all he gives her. He kind of explains with enough talent Hitomi could be something more important. The general basically abides by Yasuke's wishes to return to Africa. At least that's what he told the general. But he is granted to go forth and catch this boat that's supposed to be waiting for him so he can go back to Africa. At this time, the general says that, if Hitomi wants to, she can join the ranks as a private or whatever, and work her way up to the actual rank of anointed samurai. Hitomi likes the sound of this. We get a scene down here with Yasuke and Hitomi, and they're basically, Yasaki's like, look, he was all like, don't do this. He was like, I've seen so many battles. He was all like, you're not ready for this. And she does ask a basic question, like, how many battles do you remember? And he kind of doesn't give an answer. Like, she knows he doesn't remember. We see the scene here, and it's basically like the moment Yasaki went to her parents and killed them, and then basically at that time she's like, look, you go catch your boat and do what you got to do. I'm gonna, complete what I set out to do and become a samurai. I'm gonna join the war, kind of thing. And that's where they live off. The next scenes we see Hitomi literally training in war with other men, and they are told at the end of the training ceremony, and she is the only one that actually hits all of her targets successfully. They show like a little training dummy, but at the end of the day, basically the Lord, it's not the Santoshi guy, but the Lord comes and he's like, look, y'all trained well. Hitomi, you did like extra good, and get ready because tomorrow is our first day in battle. And there's a scene like at nighttime, and basically one of the other soldiers is like, hey, you're not scared? And she's like, what's the importance of being scared at a time like this? It's not going to do anything. The book cuts over to what Isaki's doing. He's basically kind of relaxing in this hot bath. He is hooked up with an old girlfriend, Ominasha, and they're basically kind of rekindling and kind of spending a nice night together. Eventually they, Yasaki, he gets a little high. It was kind of a regular thing to do back then, maybe some opium, but as he's getting high, Ominasha kind of tells him, that the war has started, because at this point it had not yet, but that there has been rumors of a female samurai on the battlefield. She kind of mentions that he feels like something is missing, like a piece of him is missing, and she kind of mentions like, hey, why don't you go back and get that piece that's missing. And he kind of states that once you lost something, you can't really get it back. And in the middle of while he's sleeping, he kind of tells himself, and I want to assume he's sleeping, but he tells himself, fool. And then he tells himself, it only gets lost if you let it go, kind of thing. The book jumps back over to our first day in battle, and sure enough, we have some soldiers that are after Hitomi. They have singled her out. They have followed her into this cave. It's like 3 guys. They even make a quote like, just like a mouse, As soon as they follow her in there, just like Leonidas, she takes that opportunity of the narrow passageway and she kills the first one. The next guy thinks it's like a miraculously miracle that she was able to do it, so he charges in. Sure enough, she kills that guy. And the last guy, basically she quotes the trap like a mouse thing, and she kills him too. With the 3 guys down, some lords come over and they're like, hey, you've done good, we've seen these 3 guys that you killed, and she quotes 4 guys, you missed the other guy that was out, and the first one that I killed. But basically at this point they're like, hey, you did a real good job, and the book kind of cuts over like to that night, and it's basically Hitomi comforting that same soldier, and the soldier kind of explaining what he did during the battle. Like he went and hid in a tree, and eventually like he fell out of the tree and it hurt his head. Like I said, Hitomi's kind of consoling him. At the same time, he kind of brandages the story about Hitomi killing 10 men. The rumor is already growing. But he kind of states the same, situation that really happened, and just instead of 4 guys, it was 10 guys. That night, she does go to the Lord Shintoshi, and she basically states like, hey, I've traveled this far, and I've heard of wars and seen things, and she was all like, I have a plan. She was all like, I'm skilled enough where I think I can end this war in one blow. The Lord kind of takes her to the side and he's like, look, tell me, but keep it quiet. He was like, these woods have a tendency to hear things. The book cuts over back to Yasuke, and he's basically going back, I think, to Kyoto. That's where they were. And he runs into the sumo that's featured on the cover, and we met in the first 2 issues, but Buntaro. And Buntaro we learned that he has quit, sumoing for that guy that he was sumoing. He eventually beat the crap out of him because he was mistreating him. And he applauds Yasuke for quitting before he did, like he must have known something, even though that's not the reason Yasuke quit. But basically at this time, Buntaro kind of tells, Yasuke if he has heard anything about the war. And Yasuke kind of explains that, rumors kind of fly this way and that way, and you can't take, truth out of it and stuff like that. Buntaro asks where his female companion is, Hitomi, and then he kind of states there's this rumor going around about a, let me see if I can find it. She's not pretty, and she looks like she's raised by wolves, trained by the ghost of a dead samurai, and she's being sent in disguise to assassinate Lord Ru, right in this castle by herself. Nobody will suspect it. And then Yasuke asks, how did you hear that? One of his concubines that's here actually told him, and she found out from one of the soldiers that is close to Sentashi's group, and that's how she found out. But the fact that this is that public scares Yasuke, and he takes off. He ends up stealing a horse, and not technically, he ends up paying the guy that tries to stop him, and he's like, look, just wait until I leave and you can call out that it's stolen. But he does end up giving the guy some money. And that's where this issue leaves off. There is a preview of the next issue and a little excerpt. I'll read you. It says, trapped inside Takamoto's labyrinth and fighting to survive, Hitomi must confront Yasuke and their shared past if either is to have any hope of a future. Hitomi's first journey concludes in this heart-pounding finale. And I'll show you the little preview. It looks like a picture of Yasuke in his samurai gear. It's weird. It's hard to see. There you go. But that is my review on the first issue. Now I'll give you some of my thoughts. I'm loving it. Oh my god, I'm loving it. I'm a huge fan of Japan, samurai, sword fighting, that kind of general stuff, sumo. Man, but if this isn't like, I know the author, H.S. Talk, we have talked on many bases, like about a year ago, but we talked quite a bit. And I know that he is not Japanese in nature, but man, if he isn't writing a traditional, like, Wolf and Cub, or, Samurai Champloo, I know a lot of people haven't heard about that, but that's what this book reminds me of. That samurai in that book was looking for a samurai that smelled like sunflowers. This one, she was looking for an ebony samurai. It's very similar, but man, the art feels traditional, the colors, the storytelling, even how the story is flipping from character to character now at this point. It's done in a progressive, nice way, not where you have to flip back and forth. Wait a minute, what was going on? But let me know down below what you're thinking about this. Or did you pick it up? Have you been reading, following along? Let me know. Are you regretting not picking it up? Are you going to wait for the trade? Me specifically, I know we're one more issue, but I'm hoping that we get more of Hitomi. And this is just the start. I am loving it. HS Talk and Isabella, y'all killing it. I don't know, that's all I got for you guys. That's my review. Let me know down below your thoughts, your comments, anything you want to tell me, let me know down below. Alright guys, I'll see y'all later. Y'all have a great new comic book day, and I'll see y'all later.